Hi, I'm Jen Eby. Thank you for inviting me to participate in Wake and Shake 2021. It's an honor to be with you virtually supporting your event and the Brian Piccolo Cancer Research Fund. One of your students, Emily O., heard me tell my story for the first time last November on my podcast, Warriors Day Off. For a long time, I found it was easier to write about what I had experienced than it was for me to talk about it. Writing was a big part of my healing process, my version of art therapy. I guess you could say I had been a quiet warrior until now. So then in 2020, I launched this podcast featuring inspiring stories and conversations about the many faces of courage, strength, hope, and survival. The first episode, Need to Get Something Off My Chest, was shared in over 6 countries. Listeners posted comments about how hearing my story helped them. And as your website says, it's part of being something bigger than yourself. I found a new passion and an exciting platform to help others. I think it's been difficult for me to talk about what I'd experienced because my initial story of survival is intertwined with my husband's battle with cancer and the destruction of our house during Hurricane Sandy. Bob underwent surgery and treatment for papillary thyroid cancer. A few months later, Hurricane Sandy drops a 100-foot oak tree on our house. I backed away, held onto the door frame as the house rocked from side to side. The trunk of the tree broke through all the way to the backyard. I had been spared. My husband, son, and dog had been spared. And although we had to move out that night, we felt very lucky that we hadn't been hurt. It took us 2 years before we could move back in. While we were living in temporary housing, Bob felt another lump in his throat. The cancer had returned. We prepared for second surgery, looked into clinical trials, researched treatment options, went for more scans, and visited more doctors. It felt like a relentless stream of battles to overcome, with the insurance companies rebuilding our house and dealing with the terrifying reality of a cancer recurrence in less than a year. Then I felt a lump in my armpit. I figured it was probably just a swollen gland. I was run down. Maybe I was coming down with something. I wasn't due for my annual mammogram for another month. Should I wait until after Bob's surgery, I wondered? It couldn't be cancer. It just couldn't be cancer. But I knew I better get it checked out, and I didn't want to wait. The radiologist said the lump under my left armpit turned out was nothing, but she found 2 suspicious-looking spots on the right side. The needle biopsy confirmed it was cancer. All I could think about at this time was, this can't be happening. Bob's surgery is in 6 days. My parent-teacher conference is tomorrow. I have to leave a deposit for the framer and order roof shingles this afternoon. Matthew has a school trip next week. I cannot have cancer. The thoughts in my head were circling so fast it was dizzying. I didn't know what to do first. How would I tell Bob? What could I possibly say to my son that wouldn't scare him to pieces? How could a 12-year-old handle such news that both of his parents had cancer when it was overwhelming for me to process as an adult? How could I make everything okay for him and for our family? My friend Suzanne had me focus on the checklist of what needed to be done and away from the enormity of the situation. Check the boxes and move on. It was warrior time. Protect myself with an armor of grit and determination. You can do this, I would tell myself. I played competitive tennis and could come back from being down 5-0, winning the set and match. I was determined to feel strong, not weak, empowered and not victimized, healthy and not sick. I focused on tasks and not emotions. Of course, suppressed feelings have a way of coming out eventually, one way or another. First time I went to acupuncture, it was like the floodgates opened. I cried and cried and cried while the needles were in me. It was quite a sight. I tried to keep life as normal as possible for my family, go to track meets with my son, make it to as many of my niece's graduations as possible, and close deals for my business while hooked up to chemo. I was not going down without a fight. So in January 2014, I had a double mastectomy and 26 lymph nodes were removed. Bob's radiation was on the day of my surgery. He went through radiation when I was going through chemo. He went through chemo when I was going through radiation. I think that we made about 80 trips that year to Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York City for appointments, scans, additional surgeries. We moved 4 times while undergoing treatment and rebuilding our house. For 3 years, we were in go, go, go mode, just trying to survive. Things that once seemed so important would become trivial. What seemed trivial would become important. Time became more and more precious to us. And above all else, we were determined not to let the bad times define our life. We would experience joy in moments. By the end of 2014, we were able to finally move home. I finished radiation, but Bob's battle continued until he passed away the following July. I came across a bunch of quotes that Bob liked to read every once in a while. At the top of the list was one by Theophrastus. Time is the most valuable thing a man can spend. It's the quote I included in the program guide at his memorial service. My father passed away the following year. The next step of survival was figuring out how to heal spiritually, physically, and emotionally. Support my son's well-being as he entered high school and in his grief. His path separate from mine. I am grateful for every day I have with my son, who's a sophomore in college now. It was important to me that he didn't feel responsible for my happiness or feel like I had to be taken care of. I'll share my 2 mantras with you. I don't want to be sad the rest of my life, and nobody is responsible for my happiness but me. I would learn to find my way as a widow, a single working mother, and as a survivor. That doesn't mean I don't have bad days. I do. I mean, who doesn't? And in the moment, it can be as simple as a kitchen drawer of lids getting stuck that drops me to my knees and makes me cry. But then I get back up and I acknowledge what has me off balance. Your theme is togetherness. I feel a strong connection to my friends and family, whether I'm with them or not. Some live in different parts of the country. Some live in other countries. Of course, it's a whole lot more fun being with them in person, but I always feel connected. Their love and friendship has lifted me from the lowest of depths to surprising new heights. I am so grateful to my family and my friends. Thankful and grateful to know such beautiful human beings. Thankful and grateful to have had a kind, loving husband who was a great father to my son. Thankful and grateful I had such a kind father in my life and in my son's life. Thankful and grateful for my son and my health. It's been more than 7 years since my diagnosis. I have transitioned to annual visits instead of every 6 months thanks to COVID. My friend Suzanne said it's the best news she heard come out of COVID. My last PET scan was clear, and I choose to assume everything is okay with my health unless told otherwise, and instead of living in fear. Although, honestly, windstorms do kind of freak me out still. I learned that while pity makes me feel weak, helpless, and uncomfortable, gratitude makes me feel blessed. I realize that it's okay to receive as well as to give, to accept help when you truly need it. And I'm learning it's okay to just be, to live an authentic life without the armor. I'm also learning to breathe more deeply and to exhale. So to all the warriors out there and to my dance team, you got this.